Good morning, everybody. Hello, hello. Good afternoon or good evening if that's where you are. It is July 1st. It is a busy day, first of the month. July 1st is also in the old world known as Canada Day. Of course, it's still Canada Day, but in the similar vein as Thanksgiving in America, it behooves us to reflect on not just the jingoist patriotic phrases, but also our overall history and multiple histories as nations. So I thought for Canada Day today, I would celebrate by highlighting Indigenous Canadian writers. I've read several Canadian Indigenous writers, and I have a few on my list. And it's funny, they kind of shake out mostly audiobooks read and mostly physical books to be read. So we'll dive into those, but I also have a couple little asides at the beginning. One is I check my new reviews and sales on the first of every month, and Greg has a new review up for Grasping Root. So I wanted to link it and share the new review page. I've been able to do this. This is the first time I have not been able to do this because now there's a login wall, and if you want to see the review, the URL has to contain a login step. So it kind of ruins the grab a link it to the review process for authors, which is pretty lame. But if you go on Amazon and you're looking up Grasping Root and you sort the reviews by newest first, you will find Greg's super long, detailed review. And thank you to Greg. The channel is Ghost Readers in the Sky. So he read The Grasping Root and actually included it in the June On the Range readathon because it has elements of a Western. There's the Canadian Western frontier, even though it's in the Far East. So sift through that how you would like, but I just wanted to highlight that and say thank you for the review. Reviews are appreciated from anybody and everybody. And a reminder, my books are all 75% off ebooks till August to try to avoid the silly maintenance fee that Draft to Digital is now requiring. Cat Paw brought up the Dulci's Legacy disapparition from that list, and it's because of the merger with Smashwords and Draft to Digital and how they dealt with that. I tried to go to Smashwords and discount it, so we'll see. I'll keep refreshing to see if it actually updates and gives the sale price. So stay tuned for that, but I am trying to update. All right, so with that one out of the way, now I'm going to ask for the question of the day, which is... What's the last thing you acquired that brought joy or delight into your life? So I'm going to start with my 3 things that I had primed, but think of those and drop yours in the comments while I say hello to the chat. We have a Diane, hello, 159th birthday, and I'm guessing that's for Canada. Leslie, hello, hit that notification. Cat Paw, good morning. Happy birthday to Canada. When you say 159th and then I remember we're at 250th, I'm like, wow, that's a big difference. It must be when they got independence from Britain rather than formed as a nation. I don't know. Mike is here with reads. June was my birthday and I bought myself a bookcase. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Do I remember seeing a new bookcase? I don't think I remember seeing the background change. At least it didn't change as drastically as mine did last year, but maybe it's off screen. So that's phenomenal. Yay, Greg. Leslie's going to check out his review. Dan says, yes, 159th for Canada. Excellent. Thank you for the little trivia point. Greg, not Greg. Gareth, another G name. Hello, good evening. Last thing acquired. I guess I would list a rare parody book written by one of my favorite authors, Harry Harrison, and a little crazy kitten. Yes, we've got Cherry Moon as the name of the kitten, which is very cute. And apparently she's very crazy. Awesome. Okay, so my 3, if anyone else wants to dip in and drop their joy or delight acquisition in. So one yesterday, anyone know this sound? I acquired some acrylic markers in these really pretty colors. So Posca is an acrylic marker. These are bullet width, I guess. So they're kind of big, and I was planning on using them for layouts in the journal because I continue to up my game with creative journaling, and it's pretty fun. I even made some cool cards yesterday, and I can't reveal more than that until next week. So yeah, the journaling and the markers definitely got me a little excited to do the stuff. I've also gotten, oh yes, second thing is the walkie-talkie set. So I took the recommendation of someone else in a community group and got the cheapest walkie-talkies to be able to have something in case. And in case you haven't heard me talk about this really quickly, I've become involved with a neighborhood emergency team, or NET. Everywhere else in the US, communities have these and they call them CERT, but we call ours NET in Portland. It's basically to be able to help your neighbors and get some training as to what to do in certain types of emergencies so that the emergency services, who are going to be flat out if it affects everybody, they're not going to be enough. So really you have to depend on your neighbors. They are the first responders. So in order to feel less helpless and incompetent in dealing with those things and getting to know my neighbors, I joined in last year, and they got training this year in January, and have gone to a deployment exercise, which is like a sort of staged earthquake, and then just have regular monthly meetings to get to know my neighbors more. We had a picnic. It was great fun. So the walkie-talkie is something I've been waiting on, going, am I really going to need walkie-talkies? After the deployment exercise, I was like, oh yeah, those would be really useful. So I got them, I charged them. I'm going to test them out at the coast this weekend. So pretty excited that I'm actually getting in and getting experience, and hopefully will be helpful to my neighbors and like spread the word and spread the trainings and all that kind of stuff. So that brought some joy. So feeling accomplished, progress, it's a good feeling. And then finally, also yesterday, I got a hummingbird feeder. It's the first time I've gotten a hummingbird feeder, a bird feeder of any kind in my life. And yeah, it's a pretty one, and it's got a little LED thing so that it soaks up the sun during the day and it kind of glows under glass with this blue light at night. My mom has a bunch of glowy flowers, so I am just taking after her and getting a feeder that now has like a glowy little decorative element. But I just put it up yesterday. I haven't seen any hummingbirds yet, but they're all over the tree below me. So we'll see if they venture up and they find my hummingbird feeder. That would be really cool. It's right outside the window with Bean's cat tree. So it would be good for him too. Entertainment for free. So yes, those are my three things. And let me go back to the chat. Hello, Elaine. Elaine's answer: books and 3D universe book is so fun. A 3D book, that's fun. Well, I mean, all books are 3D, but you mean they pop up, I think, or pop out, which is neat. Dan says the walkie-talkies are cool and super fun. I turned it on after I charged it, and I only had one channel that had any sort of action on it, and it was very faint. I could sort of hear it, but hopefully if you're in closer range, it'll work. Elaine says hummingbirds, lovely. Yeah, tons of them. So hopefully some will walk my way, or buzz my way, I suppose. So anyway, that's just a fun little thing to get out of the way, talk about a little joy and delight and new book reviews. And now, boom, let's go into our, oh, it melted my shared screen, which I tried out before and had already. So that's silly. Share this window. Yeah. I didn't tell you to stop sharing. StreamYard. Okay, so I'm gonna go over the books. I just made a little graphic because I don't know, felt that would be fun. So this is my graphic of the books that are Canadian, Indigenous, writers, I'll move that out of the way, that I have read. And like I said, they're mostly audiobooks because they've come to me through Libro.fm, but the ones in the middle I've also bought or got from the library. One, two bought, two library. So yeah, they come at me from all different ways, but what I wanted you to appreciate is that you don't treat a whole genre or a whole country or a whole community as like, oh, I tried one and I didn't like it. give give it its due. There's a lot of diversity. It's not a monolith. I really don't like that phrase because it's become sort of a cant phrase, but the meaning here is clear. I've got Murray Sinclair's memoir from an Indigenous judge. I've got 52 Ways to Reconcile, which is a writer's talking about reconciliation and like community things and everyday actions, which is great. I've got Unreconciled, which is obviously a very popular term to put into a title because we've got those right together, which is a filmmaker's memoir and sort of talk about the political scene, which was really good. Okay, snaking back, I've got What the Eagle Sees, which is an illustrated children's book or middle grade book that is like about Turtle Island and history and sort of reinterpreting. We've got the Rez Sisters, which is an author that I found out about through the memoir on the bottom. But this is one of his plays, and it's about how central bingo is to the culture and sort of this like dream of making it big and how the community reacts to pulling together. It was interesting. We've got The Break, which is a more contemporary fiction. It's a writer who's talking about some really trauma-infused communities, families, and generational inheritance around, I think it's southern Manitoba or Ontario. It's one of the two, because they're constantly talking about like up country and lower country, which is more urban, and the contrasting those responses. We've got Seven Fallen Feathers, which is like a investigative journalist's true crime expose talking about how a lot of young people have disappeared out of the same, I think it's the same area as is featured in The Break, because when you have native people coming off the reserves and coming to get education where they can in the cities, they're often the targets of violence. And so this is exposing the non-prosecution of people who engage in those acts of violence and how this is a travesty. So that was really eye-opening. It was a prize-winning, award-winning book, so that was great, a few years old. Then we've got the very popular Wabgishig Rice, Moon of the Crusted Snow. This is the beginning of a fiction series. It might be 2, it might be 3. I know the second one's out. It was horror, but I managed to get through it. It was really well written. He's talking about also the tension between reserve communities and outsiders, and like layering in this strange apocalyptic event and how people react to it and whether they accept it or fight against it, and then what the community does. So I highly recommend that for people who like thrillers. Res Rules in the middle there, I've got mixed feelings about, because this is a chief's experience of like 30 years of being the chief of his community. He's elected. Things have changed over that time. He's really proud of his accomplishments. He's obviously got a motorcycle, so he's kind of a cool guy. And he's bucked a lot of trends, but I feel like I've seen a couple other people reflect on his leadership and not so glowing away. So interesting to, get more than one perspective. And then in the bottom right, we've got Thompson Highway, which is the author of The Rez Sisters, but this one is his memoir called Permanent Astonishment. And this might be my favorite, favorite nonfiction. Wabgishig Rice is probably favorite fiction, and then Permanent Astonishment is probably my favorite nonfiction, which is a memoir. He's talking about from being a kid in his like rural community to going with his parents to doing things in an Indigenous cultural heritage way. He's talking about trapping, he's talking about fishing, and then adjusting to like a tourist trade and the choices that he makes in his life, the Catholic school that he and his brother go to, how they get through that. It sort of like touches on abuse in the system, but doesn't get too graphic. So if you are okay with that, it's a really powerful memoir. His sense of wonder is really inviting and welcoming. So it's a great memoir to start with. How about you guys? Do you know off the top of your head any books that are Canadian and Indigenous? Do these spark any recollections? Let's visit the chat here. Okay, Elaine's talking about the book. It's not a pop out. The pics are 3-dimensional, like looking at solar flares happening. I'm not sure how you can get 3-dimensional pictures on a 2-dimensional page, unless the book is defying the laws of physics. Happy Canada Day. Elaine's in Canada. Woohoo! Margaret's Dream Day. Hello, Eloise. You might want to reverse back and hear me gripe about Amazon review links that are no longer possible to share, which is stupid. Yeah, it was a little gripe at the beginning. Yay! Some I just found out are Canadian. Yeah. Constance, hello. Constance, sounds intriguing. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Yes, I love to intrigue. And Elaine says The Gargoyle by Andrew Davidson, his first novel. Ooh, okay, so we got some more fiction. You can see I sort of lean nonfiction, but I do have a play, a short novel, and a thriller novel in there. So, yeah. But we lean how we lean, I guess. Excellent addition. Thank you, Elaine. Special flap to make it 3D. So it's a flap, which you're saying is not a pop-out. Okay. Always down for an Amazon gripe. Thank you. Thank you. We're communing together. I like it. Yeah. So this was my fancy graphic. I don't make much of these anymore, especially the square variety, because it's the Instagram size, and I don't really do anything on Instagram anymore. But I liked mocking this up and giving it some like proportion, some little pizzazz here. But let's see, I'm going to move over to my pile of possibilities. So we're going to just boop, scooch down here. And get the same sort of swirly background just to give it a little pizzazz. These are 4 books that I actually own. So I'll pop this down here. I'll let you appreciate the graphic. Thank you. Thank you. And then I'll just hold up the books because that's probably easier. Because then you can see me. And that's really the draw, right? Always down for an Amazon gripe. Yeah. I hope people have I think they're still in the heat, but I hope you guys are coping out there. Happy Canada Day to Elaine. Is Elaine the only Canadian in the chat? Maybe. Great country you have there. Yeah. We're eyeing the grass, the greener grass over the fence for sure. Oh, Elaine says Jack White. I don't think he's Indigenous. And I did ask about Indigenous Canadian literature. So is Andrew Davidson not Indigenous either? That's what I'm asking today because I'm highlighting that today. Okay, appreciate that. All right, so let's start with the 4 physical books. So we've got some overlap here. The first one I've got is A Minor Chorus, which is a novel, short novel, narrow spine there. It's by Billy Ray Belcourt, and it also works for a Pride read. So let's read the back or the blurb. It is a arc. Ooh, okay. Well, I will read. Ooh, Alicia Elliott. Okay. Leslie and I have both read A Mind Spread Out on the Ground, which is her memoir, which is awesome. And this is what she said. Billy Ray Belcourt's A Minor Chorus is a rare gem of a book, of course. Combining philosophy, theory, poetry, and personal histories, it uses the sheer heat of Belcourt's mind and the beauty of his language to put pressure on colonial constructs until they are utterly transformed. The literary child of Rachel Cusk's Outline trilogy, which I'm not familiar with, and James Baldwin's Giovanni's Room, which I haven't read, but I am familiar with. This novel builds on both, and is yet still something so new. It has the guts to center Indigenous queer life as worthy of serious intellectual and artistic inquiry, which of course it always has been. We will be reading and rereading and learning from a minor chorus for decades to come. So I was glad I got to snap up a copy of this somewhere last year, I believe. I think it was a thrift store. So that is on my list. Pride read, even though we just finished Pride Month, and Indigenous read. So always a good time to read Indigenous lit. Oh, and the reason I was a minute late is because I was trying to clarify terms. In case you don't know, there's a lot of terms that get thrown around. Some are outdated, and so I'm not going to be using words that are incorrect, inaccurate, like Indian, because that is to refer to someone from India, and we realize now that North America is not India. So we've got Indigenous, which is sort of the umbrella term. We've got Aboriginal, which is also an umbrella term, but is used more for Australian and New Zealand Indigenous communities. We've got First Nations, which refers to, and I didn't know this, or I didn't remember it until this morning that I checked, refers to Indigenous communities in Canada that are not Inuit, because Inuit is its own thing in the far north, and are not Métis, because Métis is its own thing in the south. So it's every other community, mostly in Ontario and British Columbia. Interesting. So I use First Nations because that's more Canada flavored, and I use Indigenous because that is more inclusive, but that's the lay of the terminology land, if you will. Oh, okay. Constance has got an answer for the question of the day. A beautiful piece of raw citrine. It looks a little like a little field of golden mountain points. Oh, that's really pretty. That sounds really pretty. Yeah, joy and delight. Love it. Okay. First book down. Second book, We Survived the Night. And I think I mentioned this to Leslie, and she may have thought I already read it, like Calling for a Blanket Dance, but I have not. I think this is one of the cases where the author is like born in Canada, grew up in America, went back to Canada, so has sort of like a dual existence, which many Indigenous folks might, because the family communities, the bands expand, or they're, itinerant, or have territory in both countries. So our Western borders don't always answer to the community guidelines, but he does identify as like living in Canada, I think. So I included him on this list. Julian Brave Noise Cat. It's a really cool cover. This is wait. It reads like a novel, which means it is not. So it's a memoir, but it's written like narrative fiction. So very like propulsive, I would say. I've listened to him in an interview, and he has had a lot happen to him since birth. And I won't give that away because it's pretty shocking. But managed to like claw through and win a place and like do all these remarkable things. So I'm excited to read this. I might read it in July. Julian Brave Noise Cat, We Survive the Night. I just think that's a cool little cartoon sketch for the cover. So Tommy Orange has to say, written in gorgeous, sparse prose, We Survive the Night reads like a novel. Told with a blistering honesty, the truth and grit create a beautifully woven coyote story we haven't heard before. It's a love letter to Oakland, to the Cannon Lake band Siksika of the Secwepemc Nation, to a father from his son, to the act of being a Native person in the 21st century, finding ways to love, even through all that wounds have opened and wrought. With this, Julian Brave Noise Cat has written a book I've been waiting my whole life to read. Yeah, it's hard not to seem like a panegyric when you give reviews, blurbs like that. Okay, this one, book number 3, In My Own Moccasins, is another nonfiction. This is a memoir again. It's by Helen Knott, and I have gleaned that this is also a very traumatic experience-filled narrative, but it's a woman, so it's a bit different from the former two. The blurb in this one says, the story goes dark and then darker. We live in an era where Indigenous women routinely go missing, so murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls, and two-spirited people. Our youth are killed and disposed of like trash, Seven Fallen Feathers reference, and the road to justice doesn't seem to run through the res. Knott's journey is familiar, filled with the fallout of residential school, racial injustice, alcoholism, drugs, and despair. But she skillfully draws us along and opens up her life, her family, and her communities to show us a way forward. It's the best kind of memoir, clear-eyed, generous, and glorious. Bear witness to the emergence of one of the most powerful voices of her generation. I think this is a little older than the other two books, which are from the 2020s. No, it's just 2019. So I'm pretty current. But I remember when it came out in Booktube, Kim was talking about it, Native Lady Book Warrior, I think. And it took me a while to find it. Finally had to go to Vancouver to a Canadian bookshop where I found a copy new. So I had to buy it new prices. But I'd been looking for it so long, I just gave up. So that looks like it'll be fantastic. Also like heavy, but so I'll probably be choosing one or the other of these. Which one do you think? If you know either one, which one would you recommend? Julian or Helen? And then finally, nonfiction, we've got 21 Things You May Not Know About the Indian Act by Bob Joseph, helping Canadians make reconciliation with Indigenous peoples a reality. And this gets to the heart of why I am saluting the Indigenous Canadian authors today, because there's this tension between the nations that were before and have suffered a lot and are now sort of still negotiating with being present in a society where their legal existence is sort of strange and many people don't understand it. And that goes for America as well as for Canada. So I had 52 ways to reconcile, and this is 21 things you may not know. So we have a little theme going with books about Indigenous rights and numbers in the title. I don't know. But I like the graphic blocked cover. I mean, just appreciation for the graphic art, I guess. I don't know much about Bob Joseph, but this was also highly rated. And in case you don't know, since its creation in 1876, the Indian Act has dictated and constrained the lives and opportunities of Indigenous peoples and is at the root of many enduring stereotypes. Bob Joseph's book comes at a key time in the reconciliation process when awareness from both Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities is at a crescendo. Joseph examines how Indigenous peoples can return to self-government, self-determination, and self-reliance, and why doing so would result in a better country for every Canadian. He dissects the complex issues around the Indian Act and demonstrates why learning about its cruel and irrevocable legacy is vital for the country to move toward true reconciliation. And I would argue we have a double dose of this to do, maybe triple, quadruple, from the white people in power doing all sorts of things to other people present in the United States. But it's a good model to read about and reflect on and extrapolate. So that is my closing opinion. So yeah, I may actually read this in concert with the Reconsidering Reparations climate book. That might be a good pairing. But yeah, let me know. Maybe just go on cover vibes. Which one should I read in July? Which one do you think? I will leave that as my first pinned comment. Let's see. Yeah, it's still hot in Canada. I'm sorry, Elaine. Bleh. Yeah, and Elaine points out the challenge with terms is it depends on who you're talking to. That is true, but I'm guessing top results on Google are from the most centralized and the most coalition-based institutions that have a stake in this discussion. So I would trust that those are pretty general. Yeah, it could be what you're attached to. So you may have like individuals who just stick with what they know. Diane says, don't know of any Indigenous, but Dr. David A. Falk, a professional Egyptologist, Ancient Egypt and the Bible on YouTube is Canadian, has a few books out on one on Egyptian furniture. That is a niche. Oh my gosh, that is a niche and a half. And Emma says, hello, hello, hello. Emma's out here suffering from la canicule. How are the British friends doing? Is it manageable yet? Have we fallen off the cliff yet? It's overcast and like in the 50s, so it's cool, like fall here now. It's gonna ramp up again after the 4th of July. So we'll see what we end up with. Yeah. So shorter thing today. That was just my idea. I'm gonna highlight that. I think for Friday, it's the start of a holiday weekend. I am actually going to be camping. So my idea for Friday would either be my unputdownable books. I think that's what I'll end up doing. Or the mid-year book tag, which I also sort of prepped. But I've put up the unputdownable books like a month. I don't know. So it'll be either one of those, and I'll pre-record it and pop it up for you guys on Friday. Just to revisit, I hope there is joy and delight in your world, whether it's from acquiring something or not, just connecting with people. I still have that 75% sale of all the ebooks. Working on Dulci's Legacy. Hopefully it's in there by now. And we have a new review for The Grasping Root. So that's just a great reminder to, if you have read books recently, especially if they're lesser known authors, please leave a review, whether that's on a blog or Amazon or Goodreads or Storygraph, wherever it is. It helps get eyes on a small author's books. So I'm sure Emma would appreciate that. Eloisa would appreciate that if you've read their books. So always good to take 5 minutes and do that if you're at loose ends, for example. Thank you for being here and watching. Thank you for reading, if any of you have read my books, but also just being in the reading community. I am here Wednesdays and Fridays at 10 a.m. Pacific. And yeah, that's what we do. It's a new month. It's a busy day. I hope y'all are dealing with all the terrible things as well as ye may. And yeah, we'll see you again next time. Gloriously cool. Oh, I love that. Okay. Rain yesterday, hot and sticky again today for Gareth. All right. So there's some difference between Portsmouth and Wales. Good thing Cherry Moon has somewhere to be comfy. Yes, for the little kitten. Thank you. New review. They don't happen that often, so everyone should be celebrated. And yeah, shout out for the indie authors and the small businesses. They deserve our help, so check them out. That's it for today. So I'm gonna go pretend I can still put up a tent, and we'll see how that ends up. Hopefully no one is injured. All right, have a safe, enjoyable, healthy weekend. Take care of yourselves, everyone, and happy reading.